Welcome to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast, brought to you by www.legaladviceinparadise.com. Even in one of the most beautiful places in the world, life can be litigious. On this podcast, the best and brightest legal minds gather to help you navigate your way through every legal question you may face. This program will help you know your rights, know what steps to take, and help you find the best legal representation, all in simple, easy to understand terms. And now, here's your host, Justine Gronwald.
Aloha, Agents of Change. This is Justine with another episode of Legal Advice in Paradise. And today it is my honor to have Martin Hsia. And I hope I didn't brutalize that. But
Hsia would be fine.
Hsia, see, I need to leave it up to him. But I am so excited because I'm going to read here of all the accolades that you have. It says that you are one of the few patent attorneys in Hawaii. And that you practice trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, computer licensing, entertainment law, and we're here at Cade Shetty.
That's right.
And you've been voted best lawyer.
Yeah, I've been in Best Lawyers in America for 20 years. I started when I was 5.
Yeah, we like to start early.
Right.
And you hear his beautiful voice. He's done voiceovers too.
Well, but I cannot sing in public.
Yeah, we'll just save that for later, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we're just going to hand it to him because he's the expert. I have no idea about this, but I know it's going to be fascinating to a lot of you out there who have that creative side of you that create things, or you just want to make sure. We're going to talk about branding, protecting yourself, and that's the whole theme of Legal Advice in Paradise. We want to make sure that you do things right in the beginning, but you need to know the steps that you need to take. For instance, if you're sitting in front of Martin here, what will be needed or what he wants to know. But I'm just going to give the ball over to Martin because he's the expert, and we're going to go from there.
Okay, well, thanks, Justine. The first question to ask is, what is it you're trying to protect? Because there are various different kinds of laws, and they apply in different ways, and they vary in protection from country to country.
Oh.
So, for example, you are running a blog. And so as a blogger, you have probably most interest in copyright, which is a type of law that protects people against copying and distributing your original content.
Well, can I ask you something really quick? Because I'm already on the get-go here. Like, I do podcasting, blogs. I thought blogging and stuff like that is like a free-for-all. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Blogging is a free-for-all in the United States in some respects, which is information in and of itself is usually free. You can you have a First Amendment right under the United States Constitution to be able to speak, but there are limitations on that. And copyright is one of those limitations. Copyright protects the artistic and literary expression of the ideas that you have. So if you have the idea for a cartoon mouse, nobody has the exclusive right to a cartoon mouse, the idea of a cartoon mouse. Anyone can make their own creative and literary expression, original expression of the idea of a cartoon mouse. But if you make it look like Mickey Mouse, that's a copyright infringement.
Right.
Because that's Mickey Mouse, who is protected as a copyrighted character, but also as a trademark, because he is the trademark for Disney.
Right.
And then you have different kinds of mice. American Tail, which is a children's movie, featured a cartoon mouse named Fievel Mousekewitz.
Right.
So there are various ways, and those of us of a certain age remember Mighty Mouse.
Certain
Yeah.
age.
So in any event,
myself included.
Right. So copyright protects the artistic and literary expression of particular ideas. So you cannot protect the idea of a cartoon mouse, but you can protect the particular manner in which that idea is expressed. And so that's why we're talking about cartoon mice, and that's something that most people are familiar with.
Yeah, that's good. We
So
can
they've
connect
seen
with a lot of people out there, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people out there have creative ideas.
Right. Now, the creative ideas, if they're in the artistic or literary or musical area, then those are subject to copyright law. If the creative ideas are more in the area of creating some kind of a product, a tangible product, or some kind of a process to make something. Those are more in the area of patents.
Okay.
So patents are called, in the old days, they used to be called industrial property. They helped in industry. So if you have some kind of a device or a machine, that tends to be something that you cover with patents. And related kinds of protection for patents are design patents, utility patents, and then foreign countries have design registrations as well. And so when you have these creative ideas, either the industrial property, which is patents, and then you also have the artistic and literary property, that's copyright, you also have, you may want to make money out of these.
Of course.
And that's done by trading. So you have trade, and that's trademarks. That's when you're dealing with trademarks, that brand recognition. And so the example I give when I'm teaching a college course, for example, is guys don't understand why women pay $1,200 for a handbag.
Oh, who's guilty of that?
And that's branding, because a handbag that has one trademark may be $20 and another trademark may be $1,200.
Oh, yes. That would be Gucci and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
so it's,
I wouldn't know.
Right. So it's very, very important to realize that branding is what creates the difference in pricing, because what I tell clients is that branding is the use of trademarks. Trademarks and branding allow product differentiation. They allow you to differentiate your product from competitors' products. This branding and product differentiation allows you price differentiation, because now you can charge more for your product. You actually see this in the grocery stores, where you go to the meat section, and it used to be that you'd say meat, just ground beef. But now some of the grocery stores are trying to brand their ground beef or steaks with specific brand name recognition. So you'll see in the grocery stores, take a look, and you'll see some of the meats are branded, others are not. And the branding is very important because it tells you something about the product. I mean, when I cook, I use a specific brand of tomato sauce when I make my spaghetti, because I know that has a specific set of qualities that I like.
Exactly.
So brand recognition is very important, because you need to be able to differentiate between competitors. If everybody just had a hamburger restaurant, nobody would know which one to go to. But if I say to people, and I don't represent them, but I like Cool Ina hamburgers, everyone knows, oh, well, I've heard of them. And then there's McDonald's and Burger King. And yet, what's a hamburger?
There's no comparison.
So that's why you need to be able to brand your product from those of others, so that you can make money over your competitors if your product is better.
That's key, though.
Right, that's key. So, for example, the difference between a Lexus, the lowest brand of a luxury car brand by Toyota, and the highest version of the Camry, which is a middle market brand of Toyota, is $7,000 in the nameplate. They're basically identical car. Another example is Clorox. It's a bleach. It is chemically identical to every other bleach out there. But because of the brand name recognition of Clorox, it can charge twice the price.
Right. It's a trusted brand.
Right.
People are, it's a household name.
Right. And you'll see that retail stores often try to create their own brands. So, for example, you have, and it's not a retailer, but Costco has its own brand, Kirkland. And Sam's Club has its own brand, Members Mark. But you have Macy's has its own branding.
Western Family
is a California Grocers Association. And so Safeway has its own brands. So very often the products that are, the house brands is what it's called when it's a retailer's own brand. Very often those house brands are made by the same companies that make branded products. Cereals, for example, or they may be just as good as the branded products, but at a lower price, because they don't have to spend all the money on the advertising.
Right.
So that's why branding is really important, because you're trying to differentiate your product from your competitors' products, and that allows you to charge higher money. Also, sometimes you want to show different brands for different market segments. So, for example, for General Motors, you start off with a Chevrolet, and then you may move on to a Buick or an Oldsmobile. Well, Oldsmobile's dead now, but and then go on to a Cadillac. And Toyota starts off, I believe, with the Scion, then goes to Toyota, and then goes to Lexus. So you have various different levels, and they have different brands to differentiate among those levels, all by one manufacturer. So branding is really important, because if you're trying to reach a particular market, and you can't have one product for everybody. Because if you do that, that's what's called the Edsel, where that was an old car that people tried to market for everybody. Instead, what you need to do is what's called market segmentation. Have a product that's aimed at the particular market segment that you want to, and that was the Mustang. which is a car which was started in the 1960s, early 1960s, and is still going strong today because it appeals to a particular market segment.
Right, the muscle car.
Right. So that's why branding is really, really important. And it's the most important part of any business, is branding. Because when it all comes down to it, what is business? Providing goods and services to others for a profit. That's my definition of business.
Yeah.
And when I've given lectures to business school classes, I've asked them, anyone have a better definition for business? And no one has.
No.
So providing goods and services to others for a profit.
Right.
So you need to make the profit. You can't make a profit unless you have money.
Right.
So that's why branding is so important. And branding is basically trademarks, trademark recognition. So my law firm's brand is Cade Shuddy. And we
Right.
want that brand to stand for something. What does it stand for? Best technical excellence and the most ethical of practices. That is what we'd like our brand to stand for. And that is what we do stand for. But other people in the legal profession may decide they want to have a brand of being the most aggressive lawyers and we win at all costs, that kind of thing. So each company tries to create its own brand, and you may agree or disagree with the particular message they're trying to put behind the brand. And that's what advertising is about,
Right.
trying to put the message behind the brand. But you need to have the brand first so that you have something to which to attach the message. So for
So-
your blog,
Yeah, so when somebody comes and sits in front of you, that's what we need to start at, that starting point, right?
every business has branding problems, has trademark problems, every business.
Wow.
And trademarks are country by country. So you may have trademarks and brand recognition in the United States that does you no good outside the United States. In fact, if you have trademark recognition in Hawaii, and only in Hawaii, that won't give you any protection outside Hawaii either. That's why you
Wow.
probably want to think about getting national registration if you're going to be going beyond Hawaii. And you probably want to get foreign protection in particular countries if you're going to be expanding your business and have recognition outside of Hawaii.
So when somebody comes and sits in front of you, do you recommend this umbrella protection?
It depends on where they are.
Depends on what kind of business they have, obviously. Right.
In a business, you have to watch the bottom line. You have to make sure that you are using your resources wisely. And so I see a lot of businesses that have huge plans, and I think what's realistic for you, you need to move as quickly as possible because people will steal your trademark. Repeat, people will steal your trademark.
Okay, that's a warning.
People will steal your trademark, not just in foreign countries, but also in the United States. And they may steal it intentionally, or they may just pick a name that blocks you. So you need to be very careful because it really is surprising to me that people say, well, I don't want to spend a couple of $100 or a couple of hours of time to look up and see whether someone else is using a conflicting trademark. And I say, gee, you're going to be spending tens, hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars in promoting this trademark because it's going to be printed on all your letterhead, it's going to be in your commercials, it's going to be all your ads. So it's really, really important to think carefully. Are you going to be adopting this trademark? And people usually adopt the wrong trademark. They almost always adopt a trademark that's descriptive or generic. It directly describes some characteristic of the product. Well, that creates major problems because those kinds of trademarks are the most difficult to protect. The marketing value may make it worthwhile. I have told clients, if you want to, you can adopt this trademark. But you're not going to be able to get exclusive rights, and it's going to be very, very difficult to protect. And sometimes the marketing value is worthwhile. And it's much more important to have marketing value for a brand than it is to be having a brand that you protect. Protecting a brand that's worthless is not something that's business smart. But if you have a brand that is going to be worthwhile market-wise and is descriptive, you're going to be spending a lot of money on your attorney to try to fix it and try to
Wow.
protect it. But sometimes those are the only brands that will, or the best brands. So just budget for that. It's always trying to think, what do you have to budget for? Because if you don't think about where you're going to spend your time and money up front, you're going to regret it years later down the line. For example, a business at some point will probably be sold or try to attract investors. When you're trying to attract investors or sell the business, they're going to ask you, well,
How exclusive are you?
how exclusive are you? And you better hope that you have a portfolio of registrations
Wow.
so that you can say, well, this brand is mine. If you have only a Hawaii registration, they're going to say, okay, what about the mainland rights? If you have only a U.S. registration, are we thinking about expanding to Europe? So it depends on the kind of business.
So you need it as part of your exit strategy if sometime you
Yeah.
want to bring, like you said, sell it
Or
as an
get
exit
investors,
strategy
right.
or get. So here I am. All of a sudden, I'm finding I need your help.
That's why I'm here. So pretend that this is you're getting free advice.
I'm
So
getting
ask me
free
the questions.
advice. Okay, so
Fire away.
So here we are, Legal Advice in Paradise. We launched last week. Right now, today is June 16th, I believe.
Yeah.
So I just started last week. I already released several episodes. I've already sat with incredible legal minds that, Duke Iona, Charles DeJoux, and all these other bright legal minds. And of course, I'm doing these podcasts. I have an iTunes channel. I have a website. I have all my social media. I'm a traveling podcaster. Nobody else does what I do. As you can see, we're sitting eye to eye.
Right.
It's very intimate, and it's valuable information that you wouldn't get just Googling.
And let's say you want to sell the company.
Exactly. Okay.
So what would somebody who's coming in wanting to buy your company want to know?
They want to know
What's your brand?
what's my brand.
Legal Advice in Paradise, right?
Right.
Is that descriptive of what you do?
I give legal
Yeah.
advice, but
Legal advice is a
interviewing-
descriptive term. It's a directly
Yeah.
descriptive term. Legal advice.
Okay.
Paradise is something that suggests Hawaii,
Yeah.
but is not necessarily limited only to Hawaii. So it's indirectly descriptive. So you might be able to protect that aspect.
Okay.
Because some people, for example, say in Puerto Rico, may think that they're in paradise. Well, maybe not with the
You
weather
got
situation.
Florida.
Yeah, other places
and,
think that they're paradise as
yeah,
well.
Right.
But there's a nice alliteration to the term legal advice in paradise.
Yeah, I like the alliteration. I'm
Right.
good with alliteration.
So let's say someone in Tahiti wants to buy your brand. You don't have any trademark rights in Tahiti. So you'd have to get a French registration and then register that in Tahiti. That's one way to do it. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Or you want to go and have some other company. Well, Guam would work, except
Yeah.
that you don't have any trademark rights in Guam.
Right. I'm
So
on,
you-
with the Chamorros down there. Somebody can take it.
So there's two ways to handle Guam. One is to get a U.S. registration recorded in Guam and registered in Guam, and also a U.S. registration has effect in Guam anyway. And Guam also has its own
It's a
registration system.
territory.
Yes, it's a territory of the United States. So there are various things you can do. Now, one thing that's really different is cyberspace, because you are in social media, you're in cyberspace.
Right.
Do you have a domain name?
Yes.
What's the domain name?
I have two.
Which are?
Legal Advice in Paradise and Legal and Advice in Paradise podcast.com.
Okay.
So I have two.
Did you get the .biz, .net, .org,
I got
and
the
other?
.com.
Okay. Did you get the .net, .org, and
No, I
.biz
didn't.
variants? And why not?
Because GoDaddy said if I wanted it, and I said no.
Okay. Well, you should
I'm
think
real, people.
you should think very seriously about whether you want to get the variants, because it's a lot cheaper to buy those
it's called
variants.
variants?
Yeah, the variations. I call them variants.
Okay.
Because it's a lot cheaper to buy those than to later on have somebody else decide, I'm
And
going to
you have
register
to
the .net and
buy it.
.biz, yes,
Right.
and steal it from you, and then say, oh, if you want it, then you have to pay us.
Now, are there the variances would be, of course, the .com, the .net, the .biz.
There are two kinds of variants. There are the top level domain name variants, which are the .net, .biz, .org, which are
.org.
geographically unrestricted.
But .org is nonprofit, I keep thinking.
People always register them regardless.
Oh.
There's no ICANN or who is or whoever else is dealing with this. They don't check to see whether you really are a nonprofit. The second one is the country level domain names. That's .us and
Okay.
.ca, .cn. So there you can register. In some countries, I think Japan, you need to have a Japanese establishment before you can register in Japan. And some of these have been purchased by advertising companies like .tv that used to be assigned to Tuvalu.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they sold it to a company which now sells it for television. So the .tv, that's actually originally a country code level.
Let me ask you this really quick, because this is a podcast that is both on video and audio. Do you recommend .tv for me as well?
It's a business
Because
decision
it's
for you
video?
whether it's worthwhile.
Okay.
I think that Legal Advice in Paradise is too long for a domain name because people want to remember something. So I would try to think about possibly a shorter name. But what's really, really good for you is that your brand was available in the .com space as a domain name, because many, many times people come to me and say, I want to adopt a trademark. One of the first questions I'll ask them is, well, is the .com available? Because if it's not available, why do you want to put drive traffic towards that other person's website?
That's right.
And so that's why you want to pick a brand name that's available with the .com, and that's very, very difficult because number one, it's very difficult to find a brand name in the first place.
Right.
And then the second thing is, if you do find a brand name you like, 9 times out of 10, someone else has already registered the .com, and they want a lot of money for it.
Yes.
So when you're trying to start a business and you're trying to do your branding, you have to think about all these things. The way I look at it and the way I explain it to people is that my job is to make airbags. I make something.
Safety?
Yes, I make something. What I do every day is I create something for businesses that they hope they never need. They hope they never need to sue someone for infringement on some of their rights.
Yes.
They hope that, they do hope that I have these rights, that I create these rights for them because someone who wants to come in and buy the business or invest in the business will want to see, does this car have airbags? Because would you buy a car nowadays that didn't have airbags?
No.
Right. So what you're doing when you're dealing with what I deal with, the intellectual property rights, is trying to make sure you have the rights that you would want in case someone decides to come in and steal whatever it is that you've done. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Exactly.
It is very difficult to come up with a business model that is successful. So by business model, I mean a manner in which to conduct your business that generates enough profit to make it a successful business. And there is a difference between a business and a hobby. And I think people need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
If you're in business, you should be in business. You may be running it as a hobby at first, but I think the acid question that I always ask my entrepreneur clients is, are you making minimum wage doing this?
Right.
Because if you're
And
not
in the
making
beginning,
minimum wage,
it's like, well, how much is minimum wage?
right? It's an
Yeah.
investment. You're investing
Yeah.
your time and your money.
Right.
You can always make more money. You can't make more time.
Yeah.
And so it's a question of how you're spending your time. Is it being spent wisely? The IRS requires that you make a profit in 3 out of 5 years before they'll allow you to deduct your losses. Otherwise, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between a hobby and a business. So clients come to me and say, oh, I'm making this product and it's making a profit. I say, and how many hours have you put into it? And how much are those hours worth? If how much is your time worth? Some of my clients are professionals. Their time is worth hundreds of dollars an hour. And here they are selling T-shirts. Other people are unemployed.
It's like their passion.
Right, it's a passion. So there's a difference between a hobby and a business. If it's a hobby, that's fine. Just recognize it's a hobby. If you're trying to build it into a business, you need to think about how much cash flow is coming in, how much profit will there be, and how much can you pay in salaries to everybody. Because if you cannot, and that includes benefits, health insurance, temporary disability insurance, workers' compensation.
We kind of covered a little bit about that with Charles Dejoux in our interview, because it's business law and how to set up an LLC, and
Right.
we went through the basics, but it seems like you're going into the meat of it,
Yeah.
which is really good.
I'm trying to make sure that if you're going to invest your time and your money into a creative idea and trying to bring it to fruition and bring it to the marketplace and create a business out of it, you need to make sure that it is going to be a business, and that means it has to be able to generate enough profits to support what you are doing in terms of wages. Remember, business is providing goods and services to others for a profit. And that profit means it has to be after you paid all your expenses.
Right.
And that includes, for example, making sure you have health insurance. And you also need to make sure that if you are going to be doing something like this, and this is against my self-interest, you've taken care of everything else in your life first. Very often people come in and say, I want to invest in this, and I want to devote all this money to this invention. I'm going to generate a lot of money out of this. I say, would you invest in the stock market? And they say, no, it's too risky. I say, you know what? Investing in an invention is much more risky than the stock market. If you're trying to create a new business, it's much more risky than investing in the stock market. And so I say, have you taken care of everything else in your life? Have you done your estate planning? Do you have young children? Do you have insurance, life insurance? Have you taken care of your long-term care if you need to have long-term care insurance? Have you made your pension fund contributions? Those are all things that are very, very important in life, and they need to be taken care of before you start working on some grand idea to start a new business. Most people who come in with ideas have not been in business, and so they don't understand the problem of, you've got to have so much for overhead, I've got to have this much of a margin in order to be able to do the distribution, I've got to have the manufacturing, I've got to do the financing. And so many people think, oh, I'll just go ahead and sell this to industry. Well, if you haven't figured out how this is going to make enough of a profit, if you're running a business, the person you want to sell it to A is going to want to try to figure it out, and so you'd better know the answer before they do, so you know how much it's worth. And B, people don't buy ideas; they buy businesses.
Tangibles.
And they also buy tangibles. But why should someone pay for your idea when they can just duplicate it? If you don't have a patent on a product, someone just go ahead and duplicate it.
You should be on Shark Tank. Shark Tank is one of my favorites.
I watch Shark Tank a lot.
They grill these people, and these people have already, you can tell by the people that go on the show, they've already invented their products, they've been in market for a little bit, but if they don't have the right answers, they get shot down really fast.
Yeah, I have served as a panelist at the MIT Enterprise Forum, where we do exactly what Shark Tank does.
Wow.
And I was also secretary of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association for many, many years. So I've seen many, many entrepreneurs, and if you ask me who the most accurate is on Shark Tank, it's Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, because
he spares no words.
Yeah, you need to be. Being in business is not like trying to make money from your friends. You're trying to make money from people who are total strangers to you. You want them to become your customers. You want them to become your clients, and they will be just as willing to go to somebody else if they have something that they think is better suited to their needs at a lower price. And that's why you need to be very, very objective about what you are doing. So Shark Tank is something that's very worthwhile for new entrepreneurs to look at, because Shark Tank will show you what kinds of things to look at. There's a big difference, though. In Shark Tank, it's there for the entertainment value, and you're not seeing the business plans.
Yeah, there's right between the eyes in
Right.
a lot of their episodes. And
Right.
so you are the protection.
Right.
And it's good, because it sounds like when you take on a client or somebody who's coming to see you for the first time, you're covering all the basics first before you dive into the whole.
I try to do that, but some people just say, I don't care about all the other stuff. I don't care about insurance and long-term care and all this other stuff. I really want to get a patent. And if the client wants to do that, I'll do that. But getting a patent is an expensive proposition, $10,000 to $20,000 just to get the patent, and no assurance that you're going to get the patent. But remember, you're trying to get nationwide rights and something you can run into court to enforce. And so the real problem is that is this invention going to be worth spending that kind of money? Because patents are not for little guys who just came up with a nice device in their garage. A patent is for something that's an industry where you're trying to create or disrupt an entire industry, which it has to be a non-obvious advance, a really innovative advance. The way I explain it to clients is, every invention or device can be defined or described as A, B, C, D. What you want to do when you have a patent, a combination of elements A, B, C, and D. What you want to do with a patent is you have an element X that is so different from A, B, C, D, so different so that A, B, C, D, X is something that people will pay a lot more money for. And because they'll pay a lot more money for it, then you can make your profit. But what most people don't realize is that because of the margins that are necessary in order to create a product and then sell it at retail stores, when you buy something at normal price at retail in normal channels of trade, you are probably paying about 8 times the actual manufacturing price.
Right.
So when you stop to think about that, 8 times the manufacturing cost is what you're actually paying. You start thinking, why am I paying so much money at the retail stores?
Yeah.
So the retail stores need to make the money because they need to pay for the employees, the electricity,
and
the
they
overhead.
buy things at wholesale.
And they buy things at wholesale. But in most industries, buying at wholesale, they will double the price to come up with a retail price.
Oh yeah.
Some industries, it's triple.
Oh yeah. I think it's more like triple.
In some industries.
A lot of
Other industries there aren't.
Yeah.
But even though they're doubling the price, in most retailing, they're operating and their profits are actually very minimal, very small margin, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4%.
Well, they sell in mass.
Yeah.
Huge mass.
So it depends. Business models are different in various segments. So various ways of distribution include normal retail stores, internet retailing, and that's like Amazon. And then you also have big box discount not wholesalers, but Costco is an example of those, where their business model is to make money off of the membership fees, membership clubs, and then sell everything else at cost. So everyone has different business models to achieve distribution, but you need to understand margins. That's the manufacturing cost to the price the end user is willing to pay, and then you need to figure out, how much is the end user willing to pay for this product? And then see whether adding this element X So how much is the end user willing to pay for ABCD? And then how much is the end user willing to pay for ABCDX? If the market is willing to pay a lot more for ABCDX than ABCD, then that's when you need to have a patent, because the X added so much value that if you don't have X, you can't compete.
Yes.
So
let me ask you now, because we're coming to the end of, we're going to do a two-parter here, to differentiate before we end this part one, the difference between a trademark and a patent, or does that go hand in hand?
they're actually both in the same office, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, which is now in Alexandria, Virginia. It used to be in Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia, and I used to live across the street from it. But the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office is now in Alexandria, Virginia, and in Old Town Alexandria. And trademarks are branding. That's the ability to put a brand name on your product.
And that's why you asked me what my name.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Patents are for inventions and for designs. So inventions, there are 4 kinds of inventions under U.S. law. There are machines, processes, compositions of matter, and manufactured articles. Those are the 4 kinds of inventions there are. And then most countries in the world have very similar requirements. In fact, the United States is a member of the Berne Convention, which basically requires that patents basically follow the same kinds of, it doesn't require, but you can't really be a member unless you bring your, not the Berne Convention, Paris Convention. You have to make sure that your substantive patent law conforms to certain requirements. So most patent laws in the world, most countries' patent laws are about the same, and they conform to the Paris Convention. The Berne Convention is the copyright convention. That's why I had it in my mind. Under the Berne Convention for copyright, your copyrightable subject matter is protected in most countries in the world automatically. No formalities, no copyright notice, no registration. We can discuss that in the next segment. We don't get into the nitty-gritty. In the Paris Convention, patents are country by country. So if you want a patent in Japan, you have to file a patent application in Japan. So that's patents and trademarks out of the same office at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Then copyright is out of the Copyright Office, which is actually part of the Library of Congress. And there's the Madison Building and various other buildings in Washington, D.C., which comprise the Copyright Office. My teacher of copyright was in-house counsel at the Copyright Office. And then the other species of intellectual property that I deal with are trade secrets, which are secrets in the trade. So that's like the formula for Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah.
And then right of publicity rights, which is the right to make commercial usage of someone's name and identity and make money for that. And that's how a lot of athletes make money from endorsement contracts. And then there are various other kinds of rights that are related to these that may or may not be recognized in the United States, such as orthos moral rights. They're accepted to a certain extent in certain parts of the United States, but not to the greatest extent that other places have. Also, we have to deal with licensing, how you make money from these things, because there are only 3 ways I know of to make money from any kind of property: intellectual property, real property, personal property, or anything else. You use it, you sell it, or you rent it. And licensing is basically rent. In fact, on your income tax return, you show, if you were to rent out or license out your podcasts and receive royalties, they would be reported on Schedule E, just like any rental if you had a condo that you were renting out.
Wow, this is so fascinating, because not only are you giving us different aspects of protecting our inventions, our thoughts, our ideas, our branding and everything, you're also, it's so cool because you're giving us the taxing side of it, setting up a business side of it. So it's like a prism. I mean, it's multifaceted.
Yeah, you need to know about all these things.
They all fit together.
Right.
Right.
And so that's why you need to have somebody who has practiced law for a substantial amount of time, because it takes a long time to learn all of these things, and then you can't be just somebody who knows only this kind of law, because there are various aspects of this that relate to other kinds of law. For example, who do you want to own the copyright rights to your blog? Probably yourself, right?
Yeah, of course.
Are you going to do your estate planning and create a revocable living trust?
I have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I think you want the copyright rights to be owned by the revocable living trust.
Oh, okay. I am going to be interviewing Scott McCool-Cunny.
Okay. But then there's the other factor too. Do you think you might sell this blog at some point? If you do, maybe you want to actually put the copyright rights into a business entity, the one that you would sell.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's
those are
another
things to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you need to really sit down.
You need to know about some of these issues and think up front
Yeah.
about these issues, because If you don't think about these things up front, you may end up with having to spend a lot more money to fix them later on. And so that's why when you're thinking about this stuff, you need to be aware of some of the non-intellectual property aspects, things that just don't occur to you. But somebody who has experience would hopefully be able to tell you more information about it. I mean, I've been practicing law since 1981, so I'm revealing my age now. But I've had a lot of experience. I've got hundreds of patents just in the United States. I've gotten patents in foreign countries.
Yeah, I see some
I got
of
a binder
your,
here.
he brought some binders, folks, and it's incredibly ominous.
And I've got patents covering all kinds of different technologies. This one here is a medical imaging patent, for example, and I've done obviously surfing patents.
Wow.
And
That's interesting.
Yeah, patents on devices for surfing. And then I'm also counsel of record listed at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office as the attorney who handled over 1,000 U.S. trademark applications and registrations.
So this is the guy, folks. I know that out there's out of so many of you, there's people who want to start a business or have an idea or have created something or is using a gadget that you think could be useful to someone. Martin is the guy to see.
Yeah, be aware that many people come to me saying, I've got an improvement for an invention. Being new is not enough for a patent. And later, next segment, we can go into what you really need to do for qualifying for a patent. Being new is not enough. You also have to be non-obvious. And also, there's some various aspects in the U.S. Supreme Court that have not yet been decided. There's specifically for those of you dealing with computer software, there's a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court that was argued, I think, about 3 months ago, January 31, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, relating, it's called Alice versus CLS software, and the U.S. Supreme Court is considering the question of whether computer-implemented inventions are patentable subject matter. So that's something that has not yet been decided, although I haven't checked the Supreme Court today. But the U.S. Supreme Court has at least 4 major patent cases that have come down or are coming down this term, and they drastically affect patent law. And so I have a booklet on patent, trademark, and copyright rights, and I haven't been updating it since 1998 because the law keeps on changing.
Yeah,
so
wow. So you have to keep...
Yeah. As soon as the Supreme Court comes down with this set of cases, though, I think I will update my booklet.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. And so we're going to end this segment right now. And when we come back, we're going to be discussing
the nitty-gritty of how you get these things.
The nitty-gritty. You thought that was nitty-gritty? This is going to get into detail. So until then, we're going to say aloha. We do the shaka out.
Shaka.
And we'll see you in a little bit. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Advice in Paradise podcast. For more information, visit www.legaladviceinparadise.com.